Is October, what is it? What are we at? October 23rd. What time just keeps flying by. It's they tell you as you get older, time moves more quickly. And that certainly seems to be the case these days. Uh, all right. So yeah, been busy building this week. Lots and lots of stuff going on. My wife's been telling me that I've been working too much, but I don't know. I've been pondering maybe making these slightly shorter, but for now we're gonna keep it as is because why not? All right. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. John, I see you. How's it going?
Going well. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm great. How's
Good.
how's Arizona? Probably better weather than Toronto.
Beautiful day today. Beautiful. Mid 60s in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, it's not probably not too much different here. It's I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's probably around 10 or 12 degrees Celsius. So probably low mid 50s as the high. Anyway, the big news for me in Toronto, if for those who don't follow baseball here in North America, the local the local team had a tremendous win the other night, and they're going to the World Series. So it's basically a battle of nations. At least that's what the Canadians are positioning it as. It's Canada versus U.S. So there's obviously a lot riding. Word is if we lose, we become the 51st state. So we we
Oh,
can't lose.
What a grim perspective.
That's a good. Anyway, I added the 51st state part just to sort of rub it in a little bit. But it should be exciting and I can't say I'm like a huge baseball guy, but I do know that the player for the Dodgers is like some kind of wonderkin who can like hit home runs and pitch,
Shohei Ohtani, yes,
yeah, and makes like hundreds of millions of dollars a year kind of thing. So
kind of thing. Yeah.
but what they got one player, we got a whole team, right? So there you go. Yeah, Rob, how's it going? You could
Great.
probably add some more details to my baseball talk that I have zero clue on.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. It starts tomorrow night. Game one's tomorrow night, and yeah, LA Dodgers. I mean, they're incredible. Shohei is a generational legend, and maybe just the greatest of all time. So it's going to be incredible to be matched up against them. Very much looking forward to it, and very much looking forward to agentic marketing
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
and browser based campaign management and everything that implies. What are we 1 week into skills, Roof?
Yeah, the skills have been I've been building lots of skills there. My skill in skill building has become skillful. So
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
okay, that's it. That's all I got. But it is a nice feature. Like the way that they've done it, the way they've integrated is once you sort of get a feel for it and how to use it, it's still a little it still requires like some kind of like define sort of do that skill. And if you don't type the skill just right, it seems to skip it. So it's not like as
Ah,
magical as they make it sound. It actually requires more explicit sort of invocation, if you will. So like, for example, I've got one of the skills I get two skills relating to swarms. And when I don't quite say the swarm orchestrator, when I say go spawn a swarm, sometimes it does, but sometimes it just skips it altogether. So I'm not really sure exactly what the magic for invocation is. But previously, when I did the slash swarm, it always worked. So I still
mhm.
have that, but it's a little, and maybe it's just complex. Who knows?
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, that's going to be an incredible space because it does clean up a lot of content engineering, right? Bringing in the hooks and the web workflows and all that kind of stuff into a coherent package. So yeah, it's going to be neat to see how that all unfolds.
Yeah, for sure. Um, One of the big things we did this week is we launched the new version of the Agentix website as well, and a lot of push. One of Martin in particular was really pushing for it, and we were heavily inspired. I gave a little demo of this last week, but we were heavily inspired by the London crew and what they were doing with their website. And so, a big shout out to Bensi and Manjweep and the crew in London for being kind of our inspiration for it. And Dory was the designer. Her choice of fonts and colors and kind of keeping that console-esque style. She's done a really good job. So thank you to Dory for helping us kind of look really good. And there's a whole lot of people to thank. So I'm not gonna thank everybody, but thank you for everybody that helped. And we actually built this in a combination of Lovable and Claude Flow. So the Lovable was useful because we could, I could literally just give people access to Lovable and then they could kind of mess around with it a little bit. We could create little branches. So the Lovable capability was nice. So this really shows what's possible in Lovable. If you want to take a look, that's actually how we built it. We're probably missing a few things here and there. If we are missing you for whatever reason in the leadership page, just send me or Brad or Rob a note, and we'll make sure that we include you. Obviously, Nick as well had a crucial role in getting this off the ground. And we have little links here. What we're going to do, the next big addition, by the way, for this website, and this is something we wanted to talk about today, and this is something that Matt in particular and a few others have been really passionate about, is the idea of a sort of member directory and potential job board section.
Mhm.
Um, and we were looking at, two different directions. One, like, can we just use someone else's job board? Or should we just go build it ourselves? So that's one of the questions that we've been pondering. Now, when you look at a job board, it's basically made up of it's a database for all intents and purposes. So basically you have one side, you've got a list of people and their credentials and bios and things like that. And then the other side, you have jobs and companies that are listing those jobs and looking to connect it to. So from a structural point of view, it's not the most complicated application in the world. Now, one of the reasons I've been steering a little bit away from potentially using someone else's job board is, of all the job boards and open source systems I found, they're all relatively antiquated. They don't have the sort of learning capabilities, and I'm going to show you some of the learning capabilities that I've been building as well over the last week. But there's no sort of, interconnected relationship between skills, capabilities, interconnected to companies to create a kind of graph of sorts that the system can learn from. Most of these systems are just databases, right, with a fancy SaaS-like experience on the front. So the real question, and this might be an open-ended question, is whether or not we should embrace some of the agentic technologies and systems that we're building to just do it ourselves, maybe in Lovable and with a hybrid with Claude Code and Claude Flow and whatnot. And what I'll show here in a minute with AgentDB, or should we go and use someone else's system? Any thoughts? Am I rambling? What are you thinking? Rob, any?
I think we should vibe it. We should vibe it, Ruve.
Nice hat, Nick. And by the way, I feel for anyone that's from Seattle. It sucks that you've never made it to the World Series. I know that must be a heartbreak. But you do have a hockey team now, so you do have something else to cheer for. No basketball though. Is there a basketball team there? I don't know.
The Seahawks are pretty good.
Oh, Krista, good to see you.
You
So,
too.
yeah, so Krista is a new friend from Austin. If for those who don't know Krista, Krista, now that I see you, quickly introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. Nothing like being put on the spot. I've been vibe coding and Clauding since maybe April. Started learning it and just got hooked. And I'm here by the stroke of the universe. So I'm just endlessly grateful for you guys. This is, right place, right time kind of thing.
Okay, well, I'm excited to have you part of our crew, and thanks for coming today. I don't see Matt on
I was
our
gonna say,
Zoom.
He's also in Austin. Yeah.
if any of you are in Austin, let's go hang out. I'm right downtown. I have a bunch of friends here who are into this too. And Mark Allen and I were joking a little bit yesterday about some of the little words that Claude uses when it's doing stuff like flibberty gibberding and stuff like that. And I was like, he said, if you know, and I'm like, who doesn't know this? He's like, a lot of people don't know this. And they come up with like code words like, okay, say the secret code to get in the club, flibberty gibberding.
Yeah, habalooing. You're
Habaloo.
you're absolutely right. No, I'm not. Just fix it. I'm not absolutely right. You're absolutely wrong. And why do I have to ask you 5 times? Clyde Flow. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So the projects you're working on look really exciting. You know, at some point, you guys will have to give a little demo on one of our calls to show what cool stuff you're building.
Heck yeah. Oh, well, Mark, I was introduced to you guys through Mark Allen here on the call. So I just wanted to give you a shout out, Mark. Thank you for everything. The
Yeah,
gateway drug.
yeah. We had that was our conversation. What about 2 weeks ago? That Claude was basically the crack of AI. They give us
Yes.
they give us unlimited use in June. We go nuts. We build like crazy amounts of things. Then they have a change
For
of heart in
6 weeks.
July. Yeah, it's like it's they literally took the drug dealer approach to AI, and
And
it
it
seems
worked.
it totally works, right?
It did.
Seattle
So
lost its NBA team in 2008, so that's probably a sore spot.
you know, that was a bad day. To quote Ice Cube, the Seattle's. I'm sorry, I got too many things going on in my brain. So where did the Supersonics end up going after the Ice Cube song?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yeah,
Oh, there you
Thunder.
go.
Hmm.
That sucks. Well, next year, next year's your year, maybe as long as the Blue
Well,
Jays
they
are.
got hockey, like you said. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, what the Kraken is that what they call the team? Something like that.
Yes, the Kraken.
Yeah, yeah, just for if there's hope, because apparently the Blue Jays were basically last place last year. So they went from last place to, World Series. So there you go. Anything's possible in baseball. As long as you're not playing the Blue Jays.
Seattle's
So
a
I'm
great town. They got nothing to worry about. It's a good town.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great town. All right. Before I jump into this week's demos, anything anyone wants to say, present, discuss? We had some talk around sort of identity that we were going to do. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow on the AI hackerspace, and how there's been two groups of thought. We need to be completely, sort of, level of anonymity. No one needs to know who you are, and the other is like we need to be completely transparent about who we are. Now, the one thing that we have been suffering through a little bit is some people masquerading as me and others in the community, which I've found out about a few times. So, regardless, just if someone reaches out and pretends to be one of us, just I don't know, I'm not really sure how to validate. You see my posts at the very least. Just be aware that there is some of that going on right now. I'm not sure how to really address that. The worst one was I think there's someone on LinkedIn that's pretending to be some of us, which seems like a lot of work. You got to create a LinkedIn profile, you got to create a whole
Yeah.
fake resume and upload an image. Like maybe they're using an agent or something to do it, but that's a lot of work anly.
Maybe check in the WhatsApp group, Ruben, just to ping and make sure if they feel like it's funky.
Well, yeah, well, that's the other problem. I'm not sure. We've got like this massive backlog of people who want in the WhatsApp group, and
Oh,
every
okay.
time I add like 50 people or 100 people, we inevitably get just bombarded with spam.
Mhm.
So I'm not really sure how to handle that, to be honest. It's really hard to tell who's the spammer from who's not. Their profiles are almost impossible to tell at this point. So. Yeah, if you aren't part of the WhatsApp group and you want in, I would say your best bet is to find someone who's already in and get them to include you. Um, that's
That's
really
right.
the only solution I have. And the other problem we have is we're over the 1,000 member thing for WhatsApp, so we can't have the invite links working anymore. But someone also told me we can translate that into
and
some
down.
sort of business group or something. I don't know. Gotta look into that. All right, let's get vibing. What do you guys think? Is anything else you want to cover? We're good.
I
Okay.
think the Jenkins meetup over in Novi Sad. Do you have an update for us, Dragan?
Oh, and
Right now it's 58 applied for the event, so let's see. There is still like a week to go to the event, or less than a week. Next Tuesday, it's happening
nice.
on 28. Yeah, on 28.
And
Last night I did like a different, meetup in the Started Center there. Again, like a AI and QA. It's like a golden age of the QA coming because of the
Right.
yeah, need of more validations and verifications all over the place. So yeah.
Neat.
Okay. Yeah, and we've got that website now. So take a look at I guess the community page, and you'll see some of the upcoming events. And if you're interested in hosting your own, let us know. And I think
Ambassador form is up.
Ambassador form thing needs a little debugging, so just make sure if you do have a problem, we'll fix it quick. It's hard to find all the bugs, but here you go. And of course, I included a little console because why not? You know, include the console, so that'll allow you to sort of have the MCP. So there's a client-side MCP tool, and under projects, we've got some tools in here. See that I'm up to 223,000 on Cloudflow. And what else we got? Oh, here's the MCP tools. So we created a nice little browser native MCP implementation that allows you to basically have that client-side MCP, which is kind of a cool little way to do it. So you can sort of see that if you're interested in trying that out. All right, but in the meantime, this week's big new addition is something I've been working on as a separation for Cloudflow. So, as some of you are aware, in Cloudflow, one of the biggest sort of capabilities of it was essentially the memory system that exists within it. And the memory system, initially, in the very, very first version, all I did was basically create a SQLite database, and I created a namespace for it. So the namespace essentially defined sort of the sort of structure of the information that was being saved. And that was more deterministic in structure, meaning you had to query exactly and know exactly what the swarm name was and what the structure of the different other related sort of coordination information was, which made it difficult to sort of follow and understand. And then more recently, what I implemented was this idea of a vector-based implementation using SQLite. Now that worked really well, and I used the concepts of a reasoning bank, which was a research paper that came out from Google about 3 weeks ago at this point, and that essentially allowed you to kind of create a recursive learning and interconnected relationship of the information being stored. Now, what I quickly realized that was once I put that into place, it became a lot more information was being stored within the database, and there was this kind of slowdown in the querying of that information. So to sort of better optimize it, what I needed to do was come up with a way that allowed for all the sort of elements of that pre-existed. So I didn't want to break anything of all the tens of thousands of people who are using it every month, but I also wanted to optimize it for more use cases. So it became pretty clear that I needed to separate the database and memory component into a sort of standalone project. And the benefit to creating it as a standalone project is I could then use this, for independent agents that I could run, well, independently of Claude Code, specifically my agent flow system that allows you to run sort of Claude Code style agents perpetually in the cloud. So doing that, I ended up using this technique, which worked really well, called HN. Google quickly just to give you the correct description of which stands for, I think this is the right one, hierarchical navigable small world in an algorithm used for efficient approximate nearest neighbor search in high dimensional vector data sets. Thank you, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever this is. And basically that ended up being particularly well suited for what I was doing. And doing the benchmarks, I ended up seeing that there was substantial improvement in speed. So when I looked at the speed improvements, I quickly realized that this was kind of the way to go. And for those that are interested in what it's doing, you can see speed and accuracy and scalability and configurations, all that kind of stuff. All right, so it's super fast, super light, and super optimized for sort of multi-dimensional vector information. And then I realized, well, now that I'm using these kind of lightweight systems and highly performant systems, I can run, I'm like I do for everything, I can run a WASM that contains a lot of the core logic. Then I can expose that in both the browser and in the, and as well as and server side and so on. So I've got different sort of implementations of that. But so the important part here is I'm able to expose that in terms of a cognitive layer. So I'm offloading the logic, the learning, the process of pattern matching, and all the things that you would normally use in a traditional sort of AI model. I can now do that extremely fast and performant using the actual the actual vector database itself.
Is
So
there
then
some sort
I,
of checkpointing here, Ruth?
yeah, so there's checkpointing as well. And you can it's very customizable at this point. So you can do multi-dimensional checkpointing. That means each agent, each request, each commit, and then you can do replays, which is cool. So the replay, and I'll show you all this. I've got a whole bunch of different demos that I'm going to show you in a moment. The replaying essentially allows you to create everything that was done to get to the solution. So let's say you're running Claude Code for a day or even a month, and all the things it took you to get to the point of getting to the final application, you can actually replay parts or the entire process and then have the system identify sort of the flaws in terms of errors that were routinely found. So let's say it went down the wrong road or invoked the wrong function or skill or whatever. And then you can have that auto optimize and then put that into the system so it knows where and what to look for, and then it avoids that problem from happening again. So when I started doing that, I realized that one, it's way more efficient. It was making less calls to the Claude LLM, but it's also making less errors. And one of the things that you'll see in Claude Code is the errors are often obfuscated, meaning that you don't really see when it does a bad write. It just tries again, right? But every time it does a bad write, it actually uses the usage of LLM to do that, which means that you're more likely to reach your cap more quickly, or if you're using a traditional sort of API call, it costs you more. So it fixes that. Now I created plugins to create different types of learning structures. So depending on the type of learning you're using, and one of the ones that I'm using right now that's really good is this idea of a decision transformer, and I'll get into that here in a minute. There's a ton of stuff I'm going to show you here on this platform. The other part was this UDP approach that I've been sort of describing lately that allows you to separate the various parts of the logic, the reasoning, the understanding, the sort of inner workings of the system into multiple threads using a sort of subsystem of the internet itself, which also helps in terms of performance. There's essentially no handshake, degradation in time. So in this case, it's an AI built for the agentic era, if you will. So I built this for my particular needs, but basically it starts fast. It's got almost no overhead in terms of memory. It uses the idea of reasoning inherently. You can create plugins for it. So if you need to create new and novel ways to utilize it, which is kind of fun just to kind of vibe, you can do that. It supports traditional Node. You can run it in the browser. And a lot of the demos I'm going to show you today are actually going to be using the browser-based approach. Now, keep in mind the browser is ephemeral. So once you refresh the page, you lose the sort of context, if you will. But you can use other approaches for persistence there, like a normal database if you want, or I think it's called IndexedDB if you want to use that for the browser capability or the persistent capabilities in HTML5. It's super fast. Again, I'm getting better than 5 milliseconds on query speeds, but generally speaking, I'm seeing around 5 to 7 milliseconds on that. Now, this is generally dependent on your computing hardware because I'm using a CPU. So better CPUs, better performance. This can also be adapted for GPUs if you want relatively easily. Right, query builders, lots and lots of stuff. I'm going to show you what all this stuff. You can see tons and tons of systems here, learning systems. There's the ability to, my different learning algorithms. I've been particularly into this decision transformer model, which basically allows for sort of sequential decision making, which is kind of a cool approach. I'm using the Sarsa, and I've also got my SAFLA model, and I'll show you that here in a moment. Lots of different options. So what does it do? Oh, where's that red line coming from? Yeah. One sec, guys. I'm not even sure how to clear that. Annotations. Is that what I must have hit that or something. Here we go.
Yeah, annotate. Yeah.
Clear. There you go. No more annotations. Okay. So what do you do with it? So I've got a demo section. So the demos are getting progressively more complicated because that's how I roll. But when we see, so we have a few different demos here, and these demos are, and I'm going to show you how to use these demos. So these demos are entirely self-contained HTML files that you can then just basically view the source of and run locally. So all these things don't require any kind of server infrastructure or any secondary environment. So that means if you're looking to offload all your kind of cognitive learning processes to the client and use their CPU or GPU, you can do that. And these are all examples on how to do that. And one of the most useful is, and this is one that's probably the most popular recently, is the agentic marketing intelligence concept. And this is actually using almost all the features of the system in a browser. And so here we can see here the marketing system's running. I'm going to actually run this in a standalone mode. Okay. So the standalone mode you'll see here is an HTML file. Now, if you view the source, we can see here, we can see that it's just one really, really big HTML file with some CSS and JavaScript. Now, you'll see here that I'm using this is my distribution. So basically, if you want to have all the capabilities I've just described included in any website, so if you want to make anything smart, and again, the benefit to this approach is it runs on the edge. It's self-contained, meaning you can get all the intelligence that I'm showing you without an internet connection. All you need is to include this JavaScript, and suddenly you can make anything capable of running a JavaScript, and the WASM that it contains smart, right? And it's super lightweight. I think this entire script is like 56 kilobytes. So really, really small. So you basically view the source on the page and you've got everything you need to run. Now, in this case, I've included a pretty in-depth guide to how to use it. You see the quick start and the features, and this is all self-contained. So basically point Claude Flow at this page and you're pretty much got everything you need to run it. So I'm going to zoom out slightly and let you guys get a better look. All right, so I'm going to launch it. So in this case, we've got some configurations. Let's crank up the budget. And so you can see I can choose the different approaches, WASM or JavaScript. WASM's going to have a little bit better performance. JavaScript's a little bit lighter, I guess. Makes no difference. I haven't seen particularly much difference. I'm not using a remote LLM call for any of the vector similarities. So I'm actually generating the vectors using the JavaScript itself. So no requests to an LLM or an embedding provider. So you can choose different approaches depending on what you want. So some approaches are better for sort of discovering the interconnected relationship of things. Others are for sort of the distribution of things, and others are just the similarity towards things. In this case, I'm just using similarity, but you can fool around with it and see which one best suits the types of applications you're doing. For the marketing, the similarities seem to work the best. Now I can go here and define my budget parameters. And again, everything you see here actually works. So if you wanted to create a autonomous marketing system to manage your meta ads, all you need to do is essentially to replace my sort of simulated data that I'm generating through the Gemini API and actually just point it at the real meta endpoints, and it would just kind of magically work. Or point Claude at it and tell it to do that. So so I'm setting up, because this is actually currently running in a kind of simulated mode, we can define how fast or slow the simulation works. But again, look in the source code, you can see all that. Now, what this is actually doing is it's learning what is the ROAS, the return on ad spend, and it's attempting to train on the types of ads that convert the best based on different demographic profiles. And you could use this to get right down to a particular type of user, to a particular city, location, buy type, whatever. And again, this is meant to be a kind of demo, so you can again point your favorite CLI at it. You've got different AI configs. So in this case, I'm using Gemini Pro to sort of simulate the data, but you can change it up with whatever you want. Again, trivial at this point. I've given you all these sort of examples of what needs to happen. And keep in mind, for when using vectors within a sort of client-side approach, the more vectors and embedding dimensions you have, the heavier it becomes, right? So for most things, you don't need that many dimensions. So for example, the 1536 is the amount of dimensions that the standard OpenAI embeddings use. I think Anthropic also uses the same thing. For most applications, you don't need that many. Like it's just heavy and overly verbose for things that don't need that. So in this case, I'm just using 384. You can fool around with the settings you want, figure out what works best for you. And here's my SAFLA learning configuration. This essentially tells it the rate in which it needs to learn. So there's always a balance with these systems, and what you're watching out for is the idea of overfitting, right? Just because you trained it doesn't necessarily mean it truly understands it. Sometimes when you train it too much, it tells you the answer because it's been trained to know what the answer is. So you're kind of leading the witness a little bit. So you're gonna have to play with this, and you're gonna have to validate like anything. But so in this case, I've kept the learning rate relatively low. Probably should be higher. Similarity thresholds, how it relates, and pattern matching. All right, so we got all that. I'm gonna click launch. So I got a $50,000 budget here. Now we can also see what's happening in two spots. Every time I build anything, I always have the output to a console. So we can keep an eye on the console here to see what's happening, and we can see here that it's looking at different patterns. It's looking at the lead generations. I've also have a similar output. I put the output in both places, actually in three places, just so you guys could see how to do that. And the idea more than anything else is this is something you can just customize for your particular needs. It's meant to be a kind of demo of the system. So modify it as you want. You can see the reasoning bank processes, what it's learning, how it's learning. And again, this is almost entirely running in the browser. So I'm not actually other than Gemini, I'm not actually calling any particular third-party AI system at all. And now when I go and I choose to optimize, that's a call to Gemini. Well, that may take a second to actually do its thing. So you can see here it's processing. And I've got a little activity console, again, just to show you how I do an activity console. This activity console is essentially a duplicate of what you're seeing in the right-hand column. So kind of cool. This shows you introspection and gives you an idea of how everything works. All right, so in this case, I didn't bother rendering the output, but so I just did a real-time sort of analysis. So this is a kind of overview of this particular meta ads campaign. It's giving me a sort of idea of what works and what doesn't, budget reallocations and other sort of adjustments in need. And now I can use the same sort of analysis and feed it back to the system and use that to further optimize the system. So in that case, I could go and choose to do like a reallocation. The reallocation essentially sort of reevaluates how the ad campaign is working and then determines what and how it should actually spend the money. Now, normally you wouldn't do it as fast as I'm doing it right now. Like an ad, keep in mind these ad campaigns you're competing against the internal AI that Meta Ads and other ad systems use to sort of figure out how and where to allocate your ads. There's a kind of training phase relating to this when you use Meta Ads, and usually it takes 2 to 3 days for that to happen. So what you don't want to do in one of these campaigns is actually train it in like seconds. You probably want to have an extended training phase that lasts the length of time of the training that it's doing using the sort of meta ads themselves, the meta AI ad system or whatever they call it. So long story short, you're probably going to want to run this less frequently over the run of several days versus me doing it all at once really fast to show you how it works. But that's all customizable. Point it at it and you'll get the general idea.
Hey,
All right.
A neat wiggle would be actually, if you're already authenticating against these accounts, is pulling in some historical data so you have some training baseline.
Yeah, backtest. So
Yep.
so to do that, again, all we need to do is go in and basically say, create me a backtesting engine based on the system. So
Yep.
all you really need to do, again, is you're going to point it at this particular page, and you're going to basically, when you can do a git pull, I think it is, on any HTML page. So basically just point Claude at it and say, fetch the HTML of this page. Once you've got that, tell it to customize it. That's it. That's all you need to do. Or explain it to me and how can I use this in different ways. Keep in mind, I've also got a Node.js implementation of this, which is going to have even more features and be more performant. So and allows you to use like persistence and stuff like that. But depending on what you're needing to do, this is definitely a nice fast way to get running. All right, what else we got here? All right, so the other thing I'm working on, because it's a, at some point, everyone builds a database system, at least I do. So this is still a work in progress, but what this is doing, this is allowing me to, this is basically a database manager for the agent DB that exposes all the various features. So in this case, I'm going to create some sample data. You can see here I can choose different data based on reasoning or episodes. So episodes being sort of a task action reward, causal edges defining how the interconnected relationship of that data, one thing relates to another. So back to, the example of, training it on old data, you might want to have a causal edge that says over the last 3 months, here's how that information looks and how it's related to each other. That can form the basis of how the system understands how to use that going forward. So a kind of back testing works really good for stocks and cryptos and things like that as well. Skills, the skills, I'm not gonna lie, heavily influenced by the skill capabilities that I saw in the most recent Claude code, but I'm using that as a vector sort of implementation of it. And the purpose of these skills is to say, how do I avoid errors? If this was a problem, and editing a file or doing a particular task, make sure it doesn't happen again. All right, we can use, I'm using Gemini because it's fast, but Gemini, keep in mind when you're using Gemini, usually you have to use it on a hosted version. So locally, that's probably not going to work unless you have an explicit core policy, which I wasn't going to do. Basically, I locked this down so it only works on agentdb.rube.io kind of thing. All right, so theme, we'll do market back testing or something. Back testing. Let's try the Gemini, and I'm going to do all. Generate some data. All right, I generated some data. We can also see that because you should know by now, everything I do is shown in the console. So we always see everything I'm doing in terms of database lookups, local generations, everything that's happening is happening here. So you can always validate. And again, because I'm showing it both places, let's go to view the episodes. And then we're gonna down here, we can see that there's a diagnostic console. So you're seeing that I'm basically using a similar design structure. I'm outputting both the console and to the screen itself, so you can do similar things. Again, the idea here is to show you how this stuff works. So these are giving you running starts. All right, so the episode system here essentially allows you to do basically a vector-based reinforcement, right? So in this case, we can look at different templates. We can see the different episodes related to coding. Or remember, I requested this be like a back testing, so it looks like testing related components. We can look at the comparisons. Oh, that's an error. Gotta fix that. Also an error. Still, this is a work in progress. Let's see if these things work. Trajectory. Yeah, these work. So this is giving you different data about how it's being trained and how it works. I can do an annotation. This doesn't work kind of thing. And the interesting thing here, you notice why I always have the console open. If I want to fix this, and we can go here, and I've got this. This is actually connected to my Lovable account because it's quick and easy. But I'm doing all this sort of legwork on. I gotta find which one I got here. Is this one? No, that's Claude Code. I'm doing an update to Claude Flow with the Agent DB system, which is going to push later this afternoon. I'll show you that. If I have time, I'll show you guys that in a minute. Now I guess gotta find my right VS Code instance. Where did I put that? No. Sorry guys, I got too many things open. Classic problem. All right, which of these is my magic? Here it is, Agent DB site. Here we go. I'm gonna show you quickly how to fix this bug because I see a bug and I can't help myself. All right, I was approaching my weekly limit, which totally stresses me out. Let's see. I think it resets for me on Thursdays. I think it resets on the day you signed up or whatever. Let's see what. Ah, looks, I'm perfect. I'm good. All right. Okay, so I'm going to fix this one problem. So so you guys get to watch me fix a bug. I know everyone loved watching bug fixes. All right, oh, wrong one. Let's go back here. So I'm just gonna point it at where it needs to be. So I'm gonna go here, and it's called, yeah, this one. Man, I'm gonna use this. All right, we'll go here and review and fix at Internet IDE index HTML. All right, and I'm going to include the actual error. It's a relatively simple error. Oops, I keep jumping to the wrong one. They all kind of look the same here. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to copy this error. Let's just look at what the error is. It's a SQL node. So I'm building a vector style database using a SQL initial ACID style SQL structure in the user's memory. So just keep that in mind. So what this really means is I never define the reward column. So it's needs to be defined. So relatively simple error. So, and again, this is it. This is all I'm doing. No skills, no nothing. This is a fresh. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. While that's doing its thing, I'm gonna jump back and we're gonna take a look at some of the other things I've got in little goodies I've got in here, which is quite a few. All right, so you see a little demos. We've got other demos. This other one is a popular one, the neural trading one. I'm going to do I'm going to do an update to that later this afternoon, maybe tomorrow. But this autonomous training system is the other one I've been working on a lot. So similarly, what this is meant to do is give you the sort of key elements that you need to sort of create a autonomous training system or training system. So you can see here that there's a help. This shows you the different settings. Here are the different training related intervals and the how many cycles in epoch, how many times it looks at it, the accuracy threshold. Now, depending on what you're doing, you're going to want to up the accuracy threshold. To be honest, oh, I guess I see a bug too. This number isn't changing. Do these numbers change? Oh, still work to be done. Oh, this number changes. That's good. I build a lot of stuff, as you guys can tell. I built all this since Monday, so just in between all the projects I work on. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to, because I'm always looking at the console. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna take a look. So this is essentially telling me that the system is initialized. In this case, it's using the SQL.js library to invoke the SQLite. And I'm basically rewriting the structure of that database. There's looking if there's any patterns. Nope, there's none. And then we're going to go and start the training. All right, at which point we should see some information popping. All right, I'm not sure why it's not showing up in the. Oh, there we go. So it found a pattern. Okay, what pattern did it find? So what this is telling us. This is like hardcore machine learning that normally would be done in PyTorch or some kind of machine learning system, right? So I've been able to recreate all the structures of a decently performant machine learning system, not using any GPU, not using any Python, all in JavaScript in your browser. And this is giving you sort of the details of the learner and other sort of structures of what it needs to know. And now, like the other one, I'm outputting all that information here in the activity log, so you can keep track of it, you can optimize it, and this could be applied to just about anything that requires some level of optimization and learning. So again, kind of a cool feature. The most obvious, if we go back, let's see what else we got here. Neural trading. This one's popular, obviously. Everyone loves a neural trader. This will probably form the basis of the updated neural trading system that I've been working on for several months. And this is a kind of web-based version of it. So you can see here that you can define how much capital, what stocks it might be, the frequency of trading, the goal oriented action planning system, my self-learning capabilities. So again, this is all one single. Well, this one's a little more involved, but this might not be my best one. I actually, of all the ones I've shown you, this is the one that isn't a standalone in HTML file. I'm gonna have to look at that separately. Currently, this is actually using the Node.js implementation. I did this a couple days ago, but I will at some point do a browser-specific version of this. But in this case, if I start trading, all right, hopefully I didn't break it too badly. Let's take a look here. I might have broken it. I did break it. Of course I broke it. This was working, trust me. But no worries, we're gonna fix it. That's half the fun. All right, so Psychic Space Barnacle. What do we got here? Successfully fixed the errors. Select. So you can see here that it was unable to sort of use the memory structure that I was defining. So it looks like it fixed that. All right, good enough. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna paste that in here. Oops, did I not copy that? Let's go back. Copy that one more time. Paste that in. And now I'm going to go back to that. I got to remember where that I've been jumping around a little bit, so I got to remember where I put that. I think that was in the IDE, if I'm not mistaken. Oops. Let's go. No, training, marketing. Where did I put the IDE? Too many things open. Here we go. So I'm gonna again. This is HTML, so it's not going to auto refresh. So I'm going to have to do a hard refresh on that. And if I remember correctly, I think it was the button at the top. Now, the drawback to memory-based vector store is currently these HTML have no persistence. That means I have to start fresh at every time the page is loaded. And there's lots of ways to handle persistence. I just didn't bother with that because this was the demo. So I'm just going to load the data, generate the data. I got some go back to view episodes, and I'm going to click, I think it was compare. Is that the problem? I'm still getting the error. It lies to you. Now, oh, yeah, I'm still getting that. I'll have to do a deeper dive into what exactly is happening there. Again, always verify. Did you notice that it told me it was fixed?
Yep.
It isn't. It isn't fixed. So it lies. It totally lies. And it lies a lot. Basically the stance I have is don't believe it. Don't believe it. And in this case, I'm probably gonna have to guide it a little bit more. Like the fix seems right. Now, the only thing that I notice here about the fix that doesn't seem right is no such column as reward. Yeah, this was what was wrong. Yeah, it's not fixed, obviously. But anyway, that's what happens when you build as much stuff as I do and quickly and as I do. So anyway, I'll fix this later. This one's probably easier to fix. I probably broke it when I did an upgrade or something. And you'll see there's a docs folder. Just basically point your favorite AI at the site, and it should give you all the guidance that you need. There's a ton of stuff in here. It's pretty unique, I think. I don't know too many people that are using vector-based machine learning, at least browser-based. So, you've got that. So I'm gonna be adding this to Claude Flow. Let's take a look at that quickly. Let's go here. All right, so we can see here if you go on a little sneak peek of my sort of workflow, this is the Swarm DB. So in SwarmDB, I've got this memory DB file, right? And this gives you all the different things like pattern embeddings and the pattern links and so on. Some of these are missing. I'm gonna do a little more, but you can see here's the reasoning memory. So this is how it reasons. So I can actually see the structure. And again, this is essentially a JSON representation of the vectors themselves. Now, vectors are defined using sort of a I don't know what you want to call it, like a mathematical equation and numbers to represent the structure of a graph. So you can't see it particularly easy. So what I did is I saved that same information into another patterns area that allows me just to see what it's doing and understand what the problem is, right? So in this case, this is a perfect example. So what this is showing me is the dynamic content loading required a wait strategy description attempting to interact with dynamically loaded elements without verifying the presence causes detection of failures. So this is saved because if I ever run into this again, the system needs to might need to refer to that. And what I don't want to do is this is particularly important when you've got the sort of compact problem. So after Claude Code compacts the conversation, it has a tendency to lose focus and forget all the things that it was working on for the last 20 minutes. What this does is says every time you do a task, quickly check whether that task was done. What I don't want to do is have that induce a whole lot of latency, right? I don't want that to be super slow because that has to be snappy. So the problem with the previous version was what was happening was as I had more vectors being added, suddenly the system was getting slower and slower the more of these vectors that I would have in place. So to get around that, that algorithm I was showing you guys earlier, HWS something or other, that essentially makes this run super, super fast in like single digit milliseconds versus hundreds of milliseconds. Not slow by any stretch, but every millisecond counts when you're doing lots of things. So this is keeping track of all that. All right, so let me go back here for a moment, and I gotta figure out how to expand this back. Oh, terminal. I think I closed the terminal. Maybe I don't know. There we go. Okay, so back here, clicking my little expand view. So we're taking a sneak peek at how I go about doing this whole entire update. So this is a major reworking of Claude Flow. I'm scrolling up here. So what I did is you can see there was a compact here. I updated the skills and I'm doing a ton of verification. And what I'm really verifying here is that there's no regressions. What I don't want to do is push out a change. And I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to Claude Flow because I've made everyone use the @alpha in their sort of use of it. So that means everyone that's using it will automatically get my update as soon as I push it. And so I know instantaneously that at least 30 to 50,000 people will get it within the next 24 hours. And if I screw it up, I'm going to get 1,000 people that are really pissed off at me sending messages saying WTF. So, and I don't like that because it doesn't make me feel good. And I don't like the flack. So I need to spend a lot of time making sure that this system has a kind of regression-free, backward supported sort of approach. So that's a lot of what I've been doing. So if you go to the GitHub issue, where you can get a sneak peek. So one, I want to be able to have a bit of transparency so everyone knows what I'm doing. And two, I don't like looking at the Claude Flow interface. So in this case, what I've got here is, if we scroll to the top, we've got the entire process I went through to actually come up with the AgentDB integration. So this is the PRD. So again, I've got two different implementations of my system. I've got the browser bundle, which is about 60K, I think it was 59K, and then I've got the package itself, which is probably what we'll end up using here because we need persistence. We've got the HNSW indexing, which is just crazy fast, and various MCP tools. The various benchmark, these need to be proven. So this is basically just saying, sub-millisecond with indexing, and I am seeing sub-millisecond. You guys should know by now that I'm mildly obsessed with microsecond and nanosecond loops. So this is working towards that sort of same thing. Here's my different, so this is my most recent version. So what I'm doing now is I'm separating my libraries, where the first versions of Claude Flow was a monolith. I tried to stuff everything into some giant single npm package. Now, what the problem I suffered through with the sort of monolithic approach to building this was I essentially was I'd make one change, and then that change would indirectly break other things I wasn't expecting, and it became a kind of whack-a-mole to try to make updates, and it made it really difficult and painful. And then everyone would complain, and I'd have an inbox full of angry people, and that wasn't fun either. So what I moved to was a sort of separate dependency structure for my packages. So now what I'm doing is rather than having a sort of single giant thing, including the memory, I'm separating each of the main parts, the memory system, the agent flows, and so on, into different packages. So I can essentially I can test and fix and ensure that package works, and then implementing it into the system is a matter of just using the SDK and APIs and other integration points. So it's much, much easier for me. Let me pause. I've been talking for almost 50 minutes. Does what I'm describing make sense? Anybody have any questions? Well, if you do, feel free to pop up here. I have not been paying particularly good attention to the chat area. All right, I'm going to continue. If you have any questions, just interrupt me. Here we go. Current capabilities. So this is the sort of current state. So I'm moving from a system where I have the memory integrated, but I've got the reasoning. I got a lot of the same features and capabilities. Not all of them. For example, I didn't have a particularly good vector search. I do have AI and ML, but the AI and ML was using my micro neural network architecture, which is basically a neural network, not a vector structure. So I'm moving probably a little bit more towards vector, probably still using micro neural nets, but the vector stuff for most of the types of applications I'm building just is faster, lighter, and doesn't require any expensive GPUs. Distributed sync. This is the idea of the UDP protocol I was telling you guys about. The quantization is turns out I can shrink these quite a bit, and there's a whole quantization system, and then the hyperindexing. All right, so you can see here I had two versions. So the version I came out on Monday was 1.07. I already verified it that worked earlier in the week, but then I needed to verify that the latest version. So this was done a few days ago. And here's the plugin architectures. These are all my different learning processes. So going forward, we can then optimize our system in particular the skills that exist within Claude Code, and we can create secondary learning algorithms that apply to those skills. So as you use a skill, not only can you invoke a skill in Claude Code, you can get the skill to get better the more you use it, which is cool. And so you can do like, sure, yeah.
Ofer, you said you had a question there?
Yeah, Ruth, thank you for spitting so much content all the time. But when I try to use this system for day-to-day coding between Agentic Flow and Cloudflow and AgentsDB, which system should I initialize? And then in Claude Code, should I initialize all of them, some of them? What's your way of working when you're coding in a system?
So that's a really good question and something that I'm asked frequently. So Claude Code is let's just go back for a moment. Claude Code is essentially the sort of user experience, right? Claude Code in particular is basically been optimized, to include these various features and capabilities. And you can invoke them with slash commands. You can see all my different agent commands. And that's how I did most of these things, previously, right? You'd either invoke it with a slash, or you'd use an @ command to invoke the MCP or a given sort of agent. Now, what's cool about the skill command in relation to all these things I'm doing is now that those can be kind of self-discovered by the agents or the slash commands. Now, so taking a step back, I create these agents. Now I've got an agent that does something that I like. It can do documentation, or it can do DevOps, or whatever it needs to do. But a lot of these agents I need to run independently of me typing in a prompt and getting a response. So if I need to create a system much like I was showing you on that agentic marketing system, that agent needs to run forever, perpetually, or every hour, every minute, every day, whatever it happens to be. So I can take these agents, so the DevOps agents or whatever it is, and I can use the agentic flow system to basically have those operate using these same exact agents and the same exact structure that I know works because I can go and say use the goal planner and I see the response. Then I can deploy those to, usually I use like E2B or some cloud hosting environment, and then I have those running forever, trading my stocks, doing my ads, whatever it needs to be. So the sort of conceptual difference, am I invoking it manually? Claude Code. Do I need to run forever? Agentic Flow. Agentic Flow does a whole lot of other things. It proxies different LLM providers. It can reinterpret your need to do various types of code editing. And that, by the way, that's all in the system as well. If you do MPX, actually I'm not going to use MPX. I'm in my dev environment. So I'm going to use, so I'm in dev environment, I'm going to use the Claude Code Flow wrapper, and I'm just going to do help. And now, again, this is built not for you. This is built for agents to sort of understand how it works. That's why it's got so much stuff in it. Now, you could obviously look at it. But in this case, you'll see that there's one of the options here is an agent. All right. So the agent system here in particular, that is actually using the agent flow. So if we do agent dash help, and we can see all the different agent components that are available here. So we've got different types of boosters. So the booster is going to try to minimize the use of the Claude API. We've got a secondary MCP server that's specifically geared towards managing agents, and we've got other sort of structures in place. So this essentially, and if you want the full meal deal, you could actually just go and run agentic flow at latest and do help. And this is going to give you, so I've included that library in this library. So it's already installed, but I know where to look. So you can see here that I've got all those features as well. Tons and tons of stuff. A lot of database related things. So it's a combination. I totally went off into the rabbit hole on that. Hopefully I answered your question. Was that helpful, or what, did I just bramble for 5 minutes?
It was, but I need a little more specific. I have a project that doesn't have Cloudflow yet. I
Okay.
want to use Cloudflow and agentic flow mechanism in it. What are the commands you recommend to initialize? And then using Claude Code as my interface, do I need to ask for anything specific, or it will, because of skills, understand it automatically?
It will. Everything I do is invoke. So previously you had to sort of somewhat invoke it using like /swarm, or you'd have to use the agentic or Claude dash flow at alpha swarm spawn kind of thing. But now you don't have to do any of that. So now all you need to do to get this thing working is you're going to type mpx Claude dash flow at alpha init dash force, and if you don't run the force and I make updates to the .claude, for example, if you've installed this a few weeks ago, you're not going to get the skills folder. So these skills are all the skills that are really, and I might add a few more. I don't know. I've only balanced. I mean, how much stuff do you want me to give you? I might have a system to select and only give you certain things. But these are skills that you can take and get. So if you do this, you're going to see here that I'm always trying to show you exactly what I'm doing. I don't like any kind of obfuscation, whether it's browser or in this case, this one. So now you can go here and you can see that I'm initializing the reasoning bank. I'm doing various other tasks. I'm doing a test of the system. So I'm not just creating the vector. I'm actually doing a quick test that the vector actually works. Now I'm using the Swarm DB, the memory DB. You can see here I'm initializing the HiveMind system. Lots of cool stuff I can do with HiveMind. I'm gonna do some tutorials on how to really maximize HiveMind, but the HiveMind stuff's just even more bonkers now that I've got a vector system. You can see all the stuff I'm installing. Now, all these things you can look at yourself by going into the Claude folder. So let's go to the Reasoning Bank Intelligence. So this is a skill. All right, so we got this skill. So the skill uses a YAML format up the top. This gives it the name. So this is how you kind of invoke it, Reasoning Bank Intelligence, and so on. And these are the instructions. So you can think of these skills as a sort of secondary prompt. And what I've been doing up until this point is I've been using a primary prompt. So the primary prompt is this Claude.md. And the problem with that Claude.md is it was getting really big and heavy, and that's trying to do everything, and it would lose its context because I was trying to do everything for everyone and nothing in particular. So what this does is it allows me to lower the size of the overall Claude.md and create these more specific skills, and those skills it can also relate specifically to the agents. So the agents are, if you want to think of the sort of difference between an agent and a skill, the agents are essentially like creating new versions of Claude code, right? And new instances. You know, when we type Claude dangerously skip permission, each agent is essentially that. It has its own sort of separate context window, and then the summarization of that when it's done goes back to the primary orchestrator, and then they can use that to continue on its merry way. So when I'm invoking a swarm of 10 agents, I'm essentially opening up 10 different versions of Claude Code. Now, within that, the struggle that I had was a lot of the commands I had in the previous structure, which uses this command idea, required me to manually invocate those things. I had to do slash, agent or whatever, and then those things would happen, which wasn't particularly great. So now the skill system allows for the system to auto-discover those capabilities. And to show you that, if I'm going to type DSP, my favorite dangerously skip permissions, I create an alias for that. And now all I need to do is say, what skills do you have? And by the way, I also create a better skill builder, which builds skills in the way that I build it, which is the most useful thing you're probably going to run into. Because as you build whatever application you're building, you can literally create a skill that's specifically tailored to the app that you just built for testing, for deployment, for regressions, whatever. So as you build your own sort of application, you're going to want to create your own skills for it. When you create those skills, you're going to want to integrate the other skills as part of that. So for example, if we go here, we can see here I've got some of my different products, the memory patterns, the AgentDB learning, for example, or AgentDB advanced. So let's go with AgentDB, and let's go with learning. Learning is probably the most useful for most people here. So I'm going to say start AgentDB learning skill. Now, this doesn't always work. It's weird. So what we're looking for is this. It does it twice. Who knows why it does it twice, but it does it twice. When you see this, you know it's working. If it goes and tries to read the MD file or do something other than the agent or this kind of description of what the thing is, it's not working. So now that we can see that I basically got it working, I could have also done blah, 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 use this particular AgentDB learning system. But now what I can say is, and I'm also going to say, tell me about the skill builder. Now, the reason I'm invoking these, I could invoke these directly, but I'm kind of stuffing the context a little bit to give it awareness of what the skills are actually supposed to do. Okay, now it's using the skill builder. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a skill that allows the system to learn and avoid common errors that I'm seeing in the system, right? And I can do that a few different ways. I've got my hooks automation, which actually that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do the hooks thing too. And the hook would allow me to optimize after each and every pre-post edit type of action in the system and make it smarter automatically. The drawback to skills is they kind of have to be discovered. So there's a pretty good chance they won't always be used because it just doesn't know or doesn't think it needs to know them. So in this case, we're seeing some more details on the skills and what it should be used for. Interactive creation, blah, blah, blah. All right, last thing I want to do is tell me about the hooks skill. Now, when you're messing with the hooks, it's always good to make a copy. So I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna make a quick little backup of that because there's a chance I'm gonna mess it up badly. And I could just go to my GitHub and revert, but you know what? Just making a copy is way simpler. So I'm making a copy of that. So this, while that's doing its thing, we're going to take a quick look at the hooks. So these hooks are kind of how and oh, if you're on a Mac, you can always rewrite these hooks to be what are they, ZSH, I think is on a Mac. I use Bash by default. So Mac users, go into Claude, point it at settings.json and say, make this work on a Mac. It'll solve your problem. But you can see here that I'm basically just using the MPX. So pre, post, validate, safety, and I've got different ones. I've got a GitHub one that I've got. You can invoke. You just gotta know where to look. So these are basically post, pre, compact.
If we
I want to understand what you were saying there, Rube. You're saying that the settings.json that are built into Claude Flow do not work by default on a Mac?
They don't, I don't think. I think that I'm fairly certain they don't. Because Macs don't use Bash. They use a slightly different version of Bash, like a Unix version or something.
What
Yeah,
about
just
Rube? Do we need to make any changes in code spaces, or it'll work?
Nope.
No.
If you're running Linux, you're good to go. And if you're using the Windows Linux subsystem, you're good to go. It's only, well, Windows would be a problem, and it's for the same reasons. When Windows uses PowerShell, so you'd have to basically say you know, same thing. You're going to point it at the hooks file and say make this work in Windows PowerShell or something. And if you're using a Mac or some weird flavor of Linux, that then you're going to want to tell it to use the Mac friendly version of that Bash, which I think is ZSH or something like that.
But if you're using spaces running on VS Code locally, you don't need to do that. It should work.
If you're using VS Code locally on a code space, no, you're good to go. And again, for those who are more price conscious, I would definitely go with the dev pod approach. Again, I use GitHub code spaces mostly because I'm lazy and I can afford to do that. But if you're not cash positive, just use DevPod. It's cheap and it works just the same. Just make sure you choose the Docker option and you use an Ubuntu or some flavor of Linux similar to Ubuntu, and you should be fine.
Yeah, Ubuntu in DevPod works, perfectly fine. So.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, that's what I'm doing. This is essentially Ubuntu, and it just happens to be hosted in Microsoft land somewhere. All right, so now I've got the hooks. Now before I do any changes, and I'm totally just vibing in my right now. I'm gonna say, give me some ideas. So I've invoked 3 different skills. How I can create a new hook in settings.json that uses the AgentDB learning capabilities, reasoning bank and other related features to optimize my development environment. Environment to learn and get better the more I use this system automatically via pre and post hooks. Post hooks. In this case, using the npx CLI. I could probably use the MCP, but for hooks, I generally have a preference towards the CLI. There are ways to invoke the MCP using hooks, but it's not elegant. It seems to be particularly well optimized for CLI related hooks. So and I built the thing for that. Don't implement. Give me some ideas. And now I'm gonna get it to think because I got thinking mode turned off. I don't want you to think ultra hard, just think hard. All right. So when you put think anything, it always invokes the thinking mode. Now I run with thinking mode off because I'm generally speaking don't need it, and it creates more problems than it solves, especially for coding. So you really only need the thinking mode for planning related activities. So when you're actually using the editing functions of the system, like build a code, change a file, don't use Opus 4.1 at all, and don't use the thinking mode. It will add just random crap that's not needed. So generally speaking, turn it off. And that's a setting as well, or you just hit I think it's like Shift Tab or something. Oh, also you notice here I've added a status system, which you can also modify. So in a different, I'm gonna go here. While that does its thing, I'm gonna show you what the status system. And these are all stuff you guys can modify yourself. Tell me what the at status status line sh. You see, I have an agent that actually before they came out with skills, I created my own skills by creating agents that basically would act like skills. But now I don't have to. I should probably convert that to a skill versus an agent. But in this case, I don't really care about that. So I'm going to hit tab, telling about so this is what you see right here. And we can customize that as well. So you can basically point it at my status line command sh. Again, if you're on a Mac, you're going to have to change it to be Mac friendly. But again, just tell it that you're on a Mac. So if you don't see it, the reason you don't see it is most likely you're probably on a Mac or you're in like Windows or something. All right, so here we are. What it does, it shows the model name, what you're currently using, which I find useful. It tells me where I'm working because there's so much information. I just want to see it always. It tells me what branch I'm working on. It shows the swarm that's currently operating. So this gives me a kind of topology. Now, if you don't know what that means, it's just a random icon, just to be honest with you. But we can see here that what it's configured to do. We can see system metrics, memory usage. This is useful. Sometimes you notice that your code space crashes. Generally speaking, it's crashing because of the memory. So I want to keep an eye on the memory. If it gets too high, I'm going to go and try to clear some of that memory out a little bit. CPU load is important for me because a lot of the stuff I'm doing is CPU optimized, right? So I want to know, is that thing I'm currently doing really putting a strain on the CPU? And I can see that real time down here, or wherever it is down below. Some more performance stats. And so now I can ask it, okay, how can I customize this for the current project environment? Environment. Open-ended questions. All right, I'm gonna let that do its thing for a moment. Jump back to this one. Okay, so hopefully I'm making sense here. How are we doing for time? I'm blabbing for more than an hour here. All right, so this is the hook one. I jump back to the hooks. So the hooks is interesting. Here we go, all the way to top, self-learning. Okay, here we go. This is a fascinating concept. Thank you for that, Claude. Let me think deeply about how to create a self-improving development environment that gets smarter with every operation. Now I'm going to copy this for you guys because this is a great little prompt. You can take, there we go. It's in the text area if you want that. So what this does is going to create a development for reinforcement learning, treating every code operation as a reinforcement learning experience. State, action, reward, and learning. That's my loop. Create creative ideas include post. So file before or after. It computes a reward. Now, when people ask me why I'm so obsessed with speed, this is why. This happens now in literally milliseconds. If I was trying to do this with a traditional ML approach, it would take multiple seconds, possibly longer, to do these sorts of things. Now I'm doing that in less time than it takes you to think, literally. I can train different models. I can add and reduce rewards as it goes. So the AI, the Claude AI system, Claude Flow, is churning through all these different decisions, right? Editing files, researching things, figuring out what works and what doesn't. Now I'm adding a self-learning structure on top of it that allows the system to get better the more edits it does. Or verdict-based code quality. The reasoning bank judges every edit with the verdict. Wait, assign, store, learns that edits, add validations, and then it goes to a maximum 95%. We've got trajectory prediction. This stuff is all crazy. And just as a step back for a moment, the way that I'm building this stuff is I actually take a step into the future. I ask, what does my software look like in 10 years? Then it says, well, based on what you've built, because ChatGPT and Claude have a memory, you're likely going to be working on these types of projects. And I'm like, well, what does the evolution of like Claude Flow look like in 10 years? And well, it's going to have self-learning, it's going to be vector, it's going to be embedded, it's not going to be dependent on GPUs. All right, let's build that. So I built that. So literally, I'm sort of hypothesizing what 10 years from now looks like. Then I'm saying, based on what I have today, how can I build those things that you think are going to exist in 10 years? Then I'm actually making those things. So it's almost like this weird sort of manifestation or self-actualization of this future state that is likely, but now is definitely going to happen because I just built it. So that's why all these things look so crazy. Anyway, so we got all these different, we got these curiosity rewards. All right, let's do all this stuff. I don't even care. I made a backup of the settings.json, and we're gonna do create the updated at settings.json based on the suggestions. I'm like, we're vibing a hook that basically allows it to learn. Most impactful. Let's start with let's start with this one. I don't need to do everything. There's a bit too much stuff there. So we're gonna just go with the top 5 suggestions. I'll pop that in there. And all right. We see my numbers down here changing. Let's go back to that for a sec. Okay. So in this case, it's suggesting that we can do AgentDB custom branding for your project. Everyone loves custom branding. We should totally custom brand it. We could do, and by the way, that custom branding could be interesting. I could do that as part of my Ruve MPX Ruby. That's what my mom called me when I was a kid. So there you go, Ruby. Yeah. How can I help? I'm blabbing here, guys. It's stream of thought.
Uncopy your mic, Lyle. You went soft at the end there.
I was just asking, are you going to include all the code flow tools in your CLI and distribute it that way?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Say it one more time.
Are you going to include all your Cloudflow tools in your CLI and distribute it that way?
Yeah, they're all in there. There's so much stuff in there. You could spend weeks digging through all the random subfolders and sub arguments and commands. Like everything I have essentially is somehow interconnected into Cloudflow. You just got to know where to look. And there's so much stuff, it's almost impossible to tell you about all the stuff because there's just so much. But that's what this call is kind of hopefully helping you do. All right, so let's go back here for a moment. We can see that it's updating the hooks. Now I can go to the hooks file. Now, one of the things you're going to have to do with the hooks, you can see it's added several new hooks. There's a doctor component that we're going to have to run to verify it in a moment. We'll do that in a sec. Let me just check my calendar and see if I've got a call at the bottom of the hour. Sorry, I do, unfortunately. I'm gonna have to wrap up here shortly, guys, unfortunately. But this is creating the hooks. Once these hooks are done, let me get grind. Okay, it's done. So now we're gonna go back here, and I'm gonna go to this one, and I'm going to exit. We'll clear this so you can see nice. I'm gonna do my DSP, dangerously skip permissions. And then what I'm gonna do, just to make sure everything isn't broken, because there's a tendency for it to break, I'm gonna use doctor. All right. And then no major errors. No, that's fine. No, it looks like it worked. Okay. Let's check in the MCP servers. This is just basically saying that I've included a README file. I'll get rid of that later. It's not an agent. It's basically, sometimes there's artifacts that get generated by Claude. Now this is a problem I'm going to solve here over the next few days, but We'll worry about that later. All right, so now that we have that, let's say try the hook system. Edit the. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure what by creating a hello world.js. All right, so now what I'm looking for is I just want to make sure I didn't create some kind of crazy, breakage. Actually, I should have probably done that in the one that created it, but that's okay. We'll see what happens. I'm going to click Control O. So Control O lets me see what it's thinking. It's going to create that. Let me create an examples folder. Perfect. I can see the hooks are working. Oh, failure detection. No, that looks. This is the important part. Now, keep in mind, this is the first time I ran it. And I'm going to give you guys this, actually. I'm straight up giving you this. So this works and it's cool. And it might be a great little tutorial. We can see it actually working. Yeah, it's totally working. It's learning. Review the swarm, the memory DB and the hooks data and ensure everything is working as expected. Now, while that does this thing, I'm going to give you guys my new hook. So we're going to go to gist. And you can just copy and paste this in your settings.json, and you've got a self-learning system for Claude Code. So we're going to call this, we'll call it settings.json, Claude Code, Claude Flow, self-learning hooks. Pop that in here. All right, there we go. This is all you need. Copy this into your settings.json and you've got a system that can learn and get better as it runs. Again, if you're on a Mac, change your bash. But for those that aren't on a Mac, this will just work. You can see the auto compacting, what happens when it compacts. You can see the trajectory storage. You can see the verdict-based quality system, the asynchronous you can see the experience relay. This experience relay is crazy. It basically is kind of like a dream-like state. It goes, like when you, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but when I'm trying to fall asleep, sometimes I think about what I was doing during the day, and you're kind of pondering a little bit, or you've got some kind of like problem you're trying to solve. It's doing that. It's pondering on everything it's done and trying to come up with solutions to problems it had earlier. And then based on that, it'll write the probable solutions and then test those probable solutions as secondary activities while your agents are going and doing whatever it's doing. So it's pondering itself separately from everything else it's working on. All right, I give you the gist. All right, I'm out of time. Was this helpful, or am I on another one of my random Thursday?
Can you paste the gist link to the chat so we can? Did you did it already? Okay.
Yeah, you should have that. And again, what you're seeing is I haven't published the update to Claude Flow yet, so it's using the old implementation of my reasoning system, which is basically just slower. But generally speaking, after the update I get out later this afternoon, it'll be even better. So, yeah. Tomorrow,
I'm gonna try it now.
Yeah, I'm sure Dragon, but you'll do something crazy with it. If you guys don't know Dragon, he's building all the most. What was your QE thing? How's that going?
Yeah, it's going fine. I'm just tightening it now up and adding some explainability and observability. So let's see.
Oh, and shout out to my mom, Marlise, who's on the on today. I love it when my parents show up. If you're interested in trying the Ruvi CLI, it's MPX Ruvi, which is what my mom called me when I was about 4. Yeah, it's basically a CLI that tells you everything there is to know about me. Yeah, so that's it. That's another Thursday. Thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. And if anyone's in up for a meetup, let me know. We're creating lots of meetups, so love to meet up. Oh, one thing that we need to talk about tomorrow is the idea of a conference. Everybody wants to meet in person. I'm leaning towards Toronto because I'm here. I'm lazy, but and you don't have to go through any crazy immigration to our friends in the south. So maybe there's a Toronto Tech Week in June every year, and they've offered us a whole bunch of space and promotion. So if you're interested in maybe coming to Toronto next summer and hanging out and vibing, we should all get together. All right,
So
that's
a
it.
Tech Week after party?
Something like that. It's a reason to have some drinks. Yeah.
Work hard, party harder. Work hard, party harder.
All right, gotta go. Thanks, guys.